This is the new 2024 Toyota Sequoia. It's a great SUV with several major compromises. And in this video, we're gonna get it up on the lift, see how it's engineered, check out its four-wheel drive system, put it through its paces off-road, and let you know, should you buy the Sequoia over something like a Tahoe, a Suburban, or a Ford Expedition. Now, one of my big disappointments in this vehicle is the lack of a full-time four-wheel drive system or an auto function on the transfer case. And what I mean by that is this is a part-time four-wheel drive system like a lot of trucks and these large SUVs where you have a 2-high and a 4-high and a 4-low setting, which is great. You know, that's great, but especially if you're paying $82,000, I really would like there to be an auto function or a full-time function so that I don't have to switch between 2-high and 4-high when it snows or if I'm going on some, rougher dirt roads and I want that four-wheel traction. And this may seem like a pretty small thing, especially for us car guys, but look, there's a lot of folks, there's a lot of families that buy these vehicles that don't understand how all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive systems work, and then they forget to go from 2-high to 4-high when it snows and they get stuck, as I'm about to demonstrate. So both rear wheels are stuck in the rollers right now. I'm gonna let off the brake and you can see that they just are gonna spin and spin and spin until I select four-wheel drive high. Then it's gonna engage the front axle and now I can accelerate down off of the rollers. General Motors has been doing an auto function on the transfer case for many years, and I'd really like to see Toyota incorporate some of that technology into the Sequoia, especially at 82 grand. That would be a must for me.
Holzkern of Vienna, Austria, has a lineup of cool new watches unlike anything we've ever seen. For a limited time, there's a 2-for-1 free deal. That's this week only. Buy a watch and an accessory and get a free gift for your special someone. Check out this one, the Primus, made with lead wood and marble accents and held together in a sleek, durable stainless steel case. No two watches will look the same. That's right, this elegant and sleek watch was only made for you. Even better, Holzkern is offering TFL viewers a 15% discount on their first order. Go to holzkern.com/TFLcar to check out the Primus watch and Holzkern's complete lineup of high-quality, highly original men's and women's timepieces, jewelry, sunglasses, and more. And if you see this after the sale is over, don't worry. Go to www.holzkern.com/TFL. Use the code TFL15 for 15% off.
The third generation of Sequoia is heavily based on the Toyota Tundra, more so than the second gen, and that comes with some good and some bad things. Now we're going to start at the front of the Sequoia where we find a turbocharged 3.5-liter V6 with both direct and port injection. That makes 389 horsepower. Sandwiched between that and the 10-speed automatic transmission, you're going to find a 48 horsepower electric motor. Every Sequoia comes standard as a hybrid. The total system output is 437 horsepower, but over 580 pound-feet of torque. Now, the powertrain is virtually identical to the Tundra. That is a good thing. Up front here on the Sequoia, we're going to find a front independent suspension. There you can see the lower control arms, and you might notice those red half shafts and the red Bilstein shocks. And that's because for 2024, you can now get the TRD off-road package on the Platinum. So you get a lot of the luxuries with some of the off-road goodies, and that is one of the features. The improved suspension for off-roading and the red half shafts, along with this big, meaty TRD skid plate with TRD there on the front. It looks really good. All of that is fantastic. What's not so fantastic is this low-hanging front chin spoiler for aerodynamics. Now, of course, it is removable. It does take tools to remove, but if you want to go any kind of off-roading, you're going to have to pull that out. Now, as we move back, we're going to find the 10-speed automatic transmission, which is unfortunately not shielded. So that skid plate does cover the engine, not the transmission. And then further back, even still, we find a cross member. This is a true body-on-frame vehicle with a transfer case. So this Sequoia does come equipped with both a high and a low range transfer case, and you even get a little skid plate there. Now the two exhausts come into one muffler here at the center, and then as we move to the rear of the vehicle, we're going to find a couple of very interesting things. First of all, you're going to notice the solid rear axle straight from the Tundra. Now, the previous gen of Sequoia had an independent rear suspension. The solid rear axle does provide some benefits off-road. It does retract from ride quality, but more importantly, it retracts significantly from interior space because that axle has to move up and down, and they have to give it clearance to move up and down. It does ride on coil rear springs, although rear air suspension is an option. And then above this rear assembly, we're actually going to find the high voltage battery sandwiched there above the floor. And that is a 1.87 kilowatt hour nickel metal hydrate that powers the 48 horsepower electric motor. Now over here on the passenger side of the vehicle, we find the 22.5 gallon fuel tank, a little bit small for a vehicle of that size, and also disappointed in the shielding here, especially for a TRD off-road. You'd expect more fuel tank protection than just this plastic guard. And then you'll also notice back here, we also have those red Bilstein shocks as part of that TRD off-road package for the rear suspension. And you'll also notice a spare tire here, although it is not a matching spare. This vehicle is running a set of Falcon Wild Peak main tires, and then the spare wheel is a steel wheel mounted on a Michelin tire mounted on a steel wheel. Excuse me. So now we've moved on to the diagonal slip test. So the left rear and the right front are stuck in the rollers, and the traction control and brakes are going to have to engage to distribute torque where it needs to go. Now we do have not only various drive modes, Sport, Normal, and Eco, we also in this TRD off-road packaged equipped version have a auto, dirt, sand, mud, and deep snow setting along with actual crawl control. So this TRD off-road spec package definitely gives you a lot of technology, which is pretty cool stuff. So we're going to go into just a normal mode, like you're driving this puppy every day, set it into auto, just like that on the multi-terrain select. 4 high engaged. Now I'm going to let off the brakes. We're nice and settled. Onto the accelerator. Oh, incredible result. So almost no slipping whatsoever. 4-wheel drive system, traction control system was engaged and drove us down. Now the big challenge with the 3rd gen Sequoia is the 3rd row is mounted on top of the battery, which is mounted on top of that space where the solid rear axle has to travel. And the result is 3rd row comfort, because the 3rd row floor is very high, which means your knees are very high, and then your headroom is very minimal. So at 6 feet tall, I'm jammed up pretty good against this roof line here. Now the solid rear axle, as we mentioned, good for off-road, very durable, simple design, but this 3rd row certainly isn't as good as some of this vehicle's competitors from GM and Ford. Now for this final slip test, this is a 3-wheel slip test. I want to try something. We're going to go into 4-wheel drive low, and we're going to engage the crawl control, and we're going to see if only one rear wheel can pull us down, or if we're going to have to engage the rear locking diff, which is a fantastic option in a vehicle in this class. I absolutely love that. It's really, really cool to have a true locking diff. But here we go. Low range selected. We've got crawl control on low 1, let off of the brake, and it immediately pulls us down. So crawl control, a really cool program. It's kind of like off-road cruise control that distributes torque exactly where it needs to go, and it did a great job there. Now it's worth noting this slip test probably isn't super relevant because this vehicle is so heavy. We actually have more friction on the rollers than we typically would in like our small or mid-size crossover tests, which is why I don't usually do these tests on full-size SUVs. But hopefully going forward, I'll be able to get some beefier, juicier rollers, and we can test these full-size SUVs in a more apples-to-apples way. Now, as we step into the 2nd row of the Sequoia, we're going to find out a couple of interesting things back here. First of all, you can get this in either 7 or 8-seater configuration. If you get the 7-seater, you have 2 second row seats, 3 third row, and then of course, if you get the 8-seater, it's going to be 3 and 3. Now, these are captain's chairs in this particular platinum trim. Good room back here, even with this front seat scooted basically all the way back. I've got good space, a little cubby here, good headroom as well for second row occupants. And this is also a very well-equipped Sequoia, so we have heated, ventilated seats. We've got a third zone of climate as well as a 400 watt, 120 volt standard outlet, as well as USB-C and USB-A charge ports. This powertrain in the Sequoia is an incredible thing to drive. I mean, we're looking at 583 pound-feet of torque. It's effortless power at any speed. It accelerates, it passes with more confidence than just about any full-size SUV I've ever driven, especially up here in Colorado when we're at 6,000 feet above sea level. Not only do you have turbocharging to help reduce the effects of high elevation, but you also have the hybrid system, and it works incredibly well. Fuel economy on this vehicle is rated at 20 mpg combined, which is really pretty impressive for the size of this SUV. It's not quite as good as what you can do in the GM twins with the diesel engine, though. That can get up to 22 with that 3-liter Duramax. Now we're going to run this vehicle through the Trenches off-road course here in the Onyx Off-Road Andre's pit area, and this is a selection of divots cut into the ground which get the vehicle off center. We start lifting up tires, and we're going to see how this 4-wheel drive system works in the real world. Now for this first test, I'm just going to stick the vehicle into 4 high, not going to engage any modes, and we're going to see if the computer can figure out what to do, and let's see if we have enough torque to get through this. Now I love this TRD off-road trim because you can spec it on a normal Sequoia like this Platinum, which is really cool. I really don't like this front spoiler though. I know it's important for aero, but it really cuts down on any kind of usable ground clearance. Now realistically, if this was my vehicle, I'd pull it off, throw it away. But because this is Toyota's, I can't do that, unfortunately, so we're gonna leave it where it's at and just be very mindful of its location. So we're gonna gently go through this first obstacle. It's not about speed. Now, this is where the solid rear axle really has a benefit because we get a lot of articulation out of that rear end. Nice, even throttle application. We're gonna take it nice and slow, lose all momentum here. Let the vehicle work for it. Applying more and more accelerator. There we go. It pulled its way through. We were running on these Falcon Wild Peak tires. Oh, it's definitely a little jerky. This computer is really trying to figure out how to pull us through that obstacle. And there we go. All right, so we did it. Took a lot of throttle application. We got the turbo spooled up. We got the hybrid system, the iForce Max system, giving us that as much torque as it possibly can. But because we have the TRD off-road here, we're gonna start playing with some of the special modes and see if we can do some fun stuff with this 4x4 system that might be able to help us out a little bit. As we step into the front seat of the 2024 Sequoia, there is a lot to talk about and a lot of really great comfort features. First of all, this Platinum trim does come equipped with these power premium material seats. They're pretty comfortable. I find them to be better than the GM vehicles. I don't find them to be as comfortable as some of the offerings from Jeep in the Wagoneer and of course the Grand Wagoneer, but I do love this center console that is finished in this stitched trim. Nice comfy place to rest your arm. Also have a lot of space with this little micro cubby for storing maybe your phone, a larger cubby in front, and then this whole thing slides open. You've got a huge amount of space in the center there. You can also lift it all open. I like the coin storage there as well, so lots of usability here. Generally across the board, just lots of good places to put stuff. We've got 2 large cup holders here. We've got the wireless charger integrated well, charging up my phone. Very effective wireless charger as well compared to a lot of Toyota vehicles. The rest of the interior is very similar to the Tundra with the slightly squared off bottom to the steering wheel. Nice steering wheel, falls to hand quite well. Good visibility out the sides. The windshield's a little small in my opinion, it doesn't provide as much visibility, especially over the nose, as I would like to see. When we talk about technology, we're going to find dual zone automatic climate control here with heated and ventilated seats. We have, of course, your rear option as well, so you can adjust rear temperature. And then above that, we have the 14-inch display with wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. Tells you everything you need to know about the vehicle. User profiles are incorporated into the screen as well. Phone connectivity, all is going to be located in there. Pretty good display. I find it to be very crisp, very large, definitely takes up a large portion of the dashboard. And then as we come to the steering wheel, we're going to find our features included in the Toyota Safety Sense 2.5 system, which include adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring. All of these features are standard on Sequoia. And then, of course, the digital instrument cluster with our speed, a bunch of more information in there as well. A very comfortable cabin, certainly very premium, but you should expect that at this vehicle's price point. As configured, we're looking at $82,000, which is a lot of money for a vehicle with a Toyota badge on the steering wheel. So we're going to go into the crawl control here, and I'm going to set an assist speed. I'm going to use this knob to go to the low 1 setting, foot off of the brake, rear locker unlocked, and we're going to see if it can crawl its way through it with more ease than we were able to do the first time. Front end, going to start lifting up here, rear end, making contact with the ground still because of that solid rear axle. Very good articulation out of that rear end. Vehicle is maintaining maybe 1 or 2 miles an hour here. Kind of an alarming clunk out of the front as it fully articulates that independent front suspension. Crawl controls modulating the brakes. Don't like that crunching noise out of the front end though. But working very, very well. This really is an effortless system. Not using the brake, not using the gas at all, letting the computer figure it out. It's so cool that they've adapted this system from like the Tacoma 400 TRD models to the Sequoia. I really enjoy that. That's a really cool thing that they've done. So we made it through with crawl control with almost no difficulty, a couple little points of hesitation, but you could really get a good sense of the performance of what crawl control can do, especially for a novice driver. Now, another consequence of having that solid rear axle battery combo is that the seats have to be mounted pretty high, and there is no way to fold the rear seats into the floor. And we'll check that out in a second. But one thing which is a little bit interesting in this Sequoia is you can slide the third row, which is unique to this segment. And they do this because you can't slide the second row, which is very unusual. But you can see you can slide the third rows forward and back a number of inches. This changes the cargo capacity in the trunk from 11.5 to 22.3 cubic feet, depending on how you have the seats configured. And then we can pretty simply fold them down. I'm going to fold the headrest and use these little buttons here on the side of the vehicle to actually lower the third row. All right, so they're flat now, but you'll notice there's a pretty big gap between the seats and the actual cargo floor, but we can quite easily move the cargo floor into a couple of different positions. So if we put it into this more upper position, you can now see that you have a flatter load area to load things in and out, and then you've got that space underneath as well. And there's even a position higher than that too if you want a little shelf here. So a very configurable solution, and I think it's a pretty good option, but you know, it's definitely a compromise over some of this vehicle's competitors. And then you also have this little flap which can bridge the gap. Here, I'll show you. Put this into the seat position just like this. A little cumbersome. There we go. Fold that down like that. Now you've got a flatter load area as well without the crack. So that's how Toyota has engineered around the hybrid system. Every Sequoia has a hybrid system. There's no getting around it. You have to get it in this way. And of course, there's no longer wheelbase version of the Sequoia. So unlike the Jeep, Wagoneer L, the Expedition, the longer Expedition, the Tahoe, the Suburban, the Sequoia only comes in one wheelbase and length config. And it can tow up to 9,520 pounds. Almost forgot that, but only when properly equipped. Now for this test, I'm gonna turn off crawl control. I'm gonna go locker on, push a button there, gonna lock up that rear diff. I'm gonna use my foot, low range, first gear selected on this 10 speed, and we're gonna just let her crawl, baby, and see the comparison. Look at that. That's amazing, the difference that a locker has. And that is a big advantage of the Toyota over, for example, the GM twins that use an auto locker, which is good. Don't get me wrong, it's very, very good, but nothing like a selectable rear locker. Vehicle fully articulating. Man, that popping sound in that front end's a little alarming. But look at the progress we can make. I'm just feathering the throttle, nice and gentle, picking up the left rear, right front wheel. Really impressive articulation out of that rear end, I have to say. That is that advantage of that solid axle, folks. You know, we talked about it, I complained about it, but you really get to see the advantage of that solid rear end in a test like that. It acts as that teeter-totter, keeps the wheels on the ground, and keeps us moving forward. The Toyota Sequoia TRD Off-Road on the Platinum trim offers a lot of comfort and a good amount of space, albeit at a high price tag, and a lot of off-road potential. The big issue with the Sequoia is the third row seat. If you are planning on using that third row all the time, you may want to look elsewhere. But if you want one of the most capable full-size SUVs with a fantastic powertrain that gets 20 mpg and still tows over 9,000 pounds, the Sequoia, especially with the TRD Off-Road package, might be the one for you. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. A huge thank you to Camera Ninja Cole behind the camera, and we'll see you on the next one.